Hi, everyone. So today I'm joined by Rachna. Rachna is a certified integrated nutritional health coach. She's also the founder of Purna Thyroid Fix and specializes in managing hypothyroidism through lifestyle and dietary changes. And before going this career route, she worked in the corporate world for corporate America for 11 years as a PhD engineer. Very warm welcome, Rachna.
Thank you, Jax.
So Rachna, tell us a little bit about how did you decide from being an engineer and doing working in the corporate world, then going into nutrition. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, I think that's obviously a long story, but to make it short,
Yeah.
what I figured out is many of the people, at least working with me, by the time they were 40 or 50, they had some kind of chronic health issue. And I myself had hypothyroidism, and it was quite decently managed by medicines, but typically your all symptoms are not addressed. So I still was experiencing some mood swings and irritability. And then I kind of researched quite a bit, worked with 5 doctors before I found the one that could support my methods, I would say. And so then it was, I figured a lot could be done. And finally, I am able to reverse my autoimmune issue. And now I want to help people figure out to address their own health issues, particularly related to hypothyroidism.
Okay, no, sounds great. Thank you, Rachna. As we discussed before, we have some questions that have been sent over, and people particularly interested in intermittent fasting. Given that it's been like one of those trends where a lot of people are doing this, and I've also tried it for a little bit. So I'm gonna start with the questions that we have. So the first one that I received was, different types of fasting. So what are different types of intermittent fasting?
Okay, so I would say there are many different kind of intermittent fasting, but I'll just go with the ones that are more famous or in the current times. And those have been studied scientifically. And these are first the alternate fasting, day fasting method. So you fast one day, you eat regularly the next, and then so on. The second one is 5-2 fasting, which is you fast 2 days a week. The third one is the 8-16 window. So 8 hours eating, 16 hours fasting. So these are the most commonly used intermittent fasting methods. And you do this repeatedly over time.
Okay. And, what people really wanted to know, and me included, is how does it actually work? What's the mechanism? How does it really help?
Okay. So to explain this, I will, before going to the biology of it, I'm going to give you an analogy of what fasting does to your body and why you think it may help. So like this is coming from a different world. So there was this experiment researchers did in Arizona. What they did is they created a perfect biosphere. Okay. They planted many trees. They gave the best nutrition, best soil, always good water, the needed amount of water, and plenty of sunlight. Okay. And they expect these trees to do really good over time. But what they figured out is like after 10 to 15 years of planting, the trees started falling. Right. So they were perplexed. What happened? And could you take a guess what might have happened?
No idea.
So this is a covered dome, and what they were lacking was the wind. So the wind actually helps this basically strengthen the roots of the plants. They help them grow deeper. And that's what intermittent fasting, in my opinion, does by giving you a little bit stressor to your body to enable it, challenge a bit to grow. And the growth happens both at cellular level, and also it affects the way it metabolizes. Now, like coming to the chemistry of it or the biology of it, what happens is that when you eat food, right? So you must have heard that your glucose is our energy source. And that is very commonly, that's true for most of us. And because if we keep eating all the time, but what happens is that we have another strong energy source, which is fat. Typically our body uses in terms of like it stores away as triglycerides and when we want to use it, it's converted to fatty acids and ultimately ketones, which is basically the basis of your ketogenic diet. So what happens is that during fasting period, our body peaks the production of ketones, and basically what it's doing is breaking down the fats from its adipose tissue, and then using it as an energy sources. And ketones are a perfect food for our brain. Okay, so brain is 70% fat, and so that's basically the way the brain regulates its function is highly dependent on the type of energy sources it gets. And that's why you see all the benefits that have been quoted for the intermittent fasting. And yeah, we can go over them. One of it is obviously it has helped you with addressing the metabolic issues such as obesity, diabetes. And it's more so because of the way the brain makes its hormones, right? Because it now has a better control of what, or it can decide a little bit better. And it also affects, in fact, I was surprised when I was looking that it, in fact, if you are an endurance athlete, it can help you better regulate your runs and increase your efficiency. So it's very interesting how your body works.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So the next question we have, is it sustainable? That is, I think, very, very important one. Because, of course, we want to start something and, people have to work really, really hard to have that, fasting times in, like, okay, if you're doing 16 to 8 hours, whatever. But then is it really sustainable? Do you see it as a sustainable means of,
Okay, so there is a lot of background behind it. I would say is it is, so it depends, first, the answer. And the second thing is that it depends how strict you are and how you're following it. If you're actually doing it by the clock, I would say it's not sustainable. It wouldn't be for me. But if you think about intermittent fasting, we have been doing it for centuries. So yeah, I come from India, and I know that pretty much every month there is a fasting day, because all these ladies are gonna spend time in the kitchen fasting and then preparing meals. So yes, traditionally speaking, people have been fasting. In fact, my in-laws, they fast every couple of weeks based on the moon calendar. And they have been doing it for ages, in fact. So yes, it is doable when you have a deeper meaning of doing it. But if you're just looking for it as a mean of, weight loss, or today I have time, I'm gonna invest something to do that, yes, you probably get into trouble. But I mean, I feel that if it's a way of life, if you do it based on, like, you have to adapt it to your lifestyle, not just follow 16 rules, because in many times the science is also depending on, like, all these studies have been done on men. Okay. In fact, how it affects long term, the way it's being done today on women's health is not yet very well understood. So if you are feeling the stress of it, right? So when I gave the wind analogy, like, if you think about, the wind comes in form of a storm, right? If it gives you too much stress to your body, that's not healthy for you. Yes, a little bit stress is good, but if it becomes so stressful, if your life demands, if your job demands that you have to be, on the clock, and you can't really pay attention to this 16 window, and that is stressing you out, that's not good for you.
Yeah, I think you're right. So because I was doing it at a point, and I have, PCOS, so hormonal imbalance. And, when I was doing it, I felt like I was on track and I was doing really well. But suddenly, my, the symptoms related to PCOS, like, kind of shot up. And I was thinking, what is going on? Like, and my skin was all over the place. It was just really bad. And I spoke with a nutritionist, and she told me that, your, glucose levels are spiking up. Insulin is spiking up because of the glucose, and, it's not good for you. So, you have to be careful of, what your, underlying conditions are, if there are any, and, like, does it suit your lifestyle or not? And also she was telling me that, if your body is telling you that you are hungry, you need to eat something, you should listen to your body rather than just going strictly by the clock. So yeah, I guess it works for some people very well, but you have to be really clear on, like, what is really for you and what's not.
I mean, just to bring, like, you brought a very good point, like, listen to your body. I think that is the key for making anything sustainable for you. And yeah, there have been like, I know my friend, she also did intermittent fasting, and she's a perfectly healthy woman.
Yeah.
And she went into this binge eating phases, right? She would, so your body never lies. Like if it needs certain nutrition, it's gonna crave for it. And you want to give it at that time, because if you deprive, your body will stop listening to you.
Yeah.
And the symptoms get louder.
Yeah. And actually the next question that I received was similar. So it said that is intermittent fasting suitable for women who have conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, thyroid, hormonal issues, or thyroid, issues. So yeah, what would you say to that? Well, we've discussed PCOS slightly. What about thyroid issues?
So I would say is that in the limits, it is beneficial, but again, you have to be always listening to your body when you do any of this practice. So I have hypothyroidism, and at that one point of time, I was doing one weekly fast, a 24-hour fast, because when you look at the science of intermittent fasting, your body's ketone production, it starts increasing, or it kind of peaks at 8 to 12-hour window, and then it's stable for the next 24 hours. And for like between 24 to 40 hours, it again starts rising, and then stabilize after 48 hours. So if you think about the science, so yes, your body needs that production, and on and off, you want to basically do some kind of housekeeping and some kind of fasting. So I feel that it is beneficial, but then if it is again stressing your body, and every woman and every person is different in that way. Just because you have a chronic health issue doesn't make you unsuitable candidate, because it is supposed it has helped people with diabetes and metabolic disorder. I think it has to do on how you are doing it. Whether you are actually talking to a doctor, making sure you're listening to your body, or just following a fat diet because your friend ABC does it that way. You are doing it that way. So I think that is the answer that I would say for. All right.
And so the next one was, what's the optimum fasting time for women? I know that you said that every person is different. So, but like, is there any answer to that?
So I think I kind of touch base on that, is like 8 to 12 hours is when your ketone production starts happening. So one of the things is that women have lower metabolic rates than men. Like, so I would say for women, it may be a little bit longer, but women go through a lot of things, right? Women have a third cycle, iridium cycle, which is basically your menstruation cycle. So it also will change depending on where in the phase of your menstruation cycle it, and there's going to be a science to it. So again, the key thing is like when you feel so you need to be in the ketosis for it to work. And typically this 8 to 12 hour is the time when it kind of starts, and you want to maintain it for a few hours. So that's the reason they say do it like a 16 hour like every day. But not everybody, like when you are like, for me, it's important to combine this with good healthy eating, because you can't really offer anything to your body in that 8-hour window and then expect great results. Because there is again like definitely I would say go with 15 hours 16 hours if you're a woman. That may be a good, but then if you are fast like if your metabolism is fast, you can probably get away with like a 12-hour 13 hours window.
Okay. Yeah, so I think ideally, it should be like starting slower, like, not like straight away fasting for too long, but like starting slow and then maybe increasing it to see how it suits your body. Okay, so the next one we have is, I think we were just talking about it. How does intermittent fasting affect your menstrual cycle?
Yes. So again, it is not research very well done, but many women have seen it changes the way. Sometimes, in fact, it's been shown the level of the flow has changed, and also the frequency changes, because I think at the core level, it depends on how your body perceives it as a stressor. If it is a good stress, like good stress is good for your body because it's challenging it just the right way. But when it becomes more than that threshold level that your body can tolerate, then you will see all kind of irregularity. So that is something that you need to be in touch. They are telling you whether this intermittent fasting is working for you or not.
Okay.
or rather the other way around. It's not the other way around that, it's going to become better or anything.
Okay. And is it like, when you do this fasting, could you do on alternate days, or I don't know, I've never like, I just had no idea. So, or do you have, when you start, you have to carry on like doing it every day, back to back?
No. Yeah, I'm a big fan of actually intermittent fasting. The way traditionally it was done is people do it monthly.
Okay.
So the minimum I would say is you want to do this every quarterly, like 24 to 48 hours of fast, mostly on the level of 48 hours fast has been shown really good for your brain health. Okay, so this is like a brain. There's a book I read about brain maker. So
Mhm.
they talk a lot about fasting. So that is more of a traditional way of fasting.
Yeah.
But people have adapted it to different levels. So if you think about the way my grandfather ate, like at least I know that he was eating his two good meals, like 10 o'clock in the morning around that time, or 4 or 5 o'clock in the night,
Yeah.
evening. And I mean, I am a Jain, which like religiously we don't eat anything after the sunset. So it was like the fasting every single day. And everybody was in the same health. I mean, in a good health, but that didn't really prevent diabetes. Okay, in my family, that we had, at least I know my mother's side, we had diabetes. So
Mhm.
it was not that it was helping them with the diabetes, but I see that, when you combine this 16 hours and 8 hour, at least in actual terms,
Mhm.
with good food, like healthy, wholesome food, then probably it would help. And I mean, I see my grandpa, like on my husband's side, I see my in-laws fasting once every 2 weeks for 24 hours. And
Okay.
that is working great for them. So long story short, I don't believe that you have to do it every single day by the clock, but every other day, like whatever fits your lifestyle, 15, like 5 to, the key is for your body to challenge it a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to challenge it a bit so that and you want to challenge it routinely.
Yeah.
So I mean, I tried once a week for myself, and it worked great.
Okay.
I mean, I couldn't do it every day. I mean, I didn't even want to do it every
I,
day, like, to be
yeah,
honest.
and I think that's why people think, it kind of comes naturally that it's not so sustainable if you're trying to do it every day and sticking to, being by the clock and everything. But I think, I mean, if it is beneficial and, the way it's supposed to be, if you did it like every other day or every 2 days, depending on how your body
Mhm.
reacts to it, I think that's really the right way of finding it out rather than going by fixed, 16 to 8 hours, this many hours, and just strictly stopping after, let's say 5 o'clock, when at 7 o'clock you really your body is really asking for food. So I guess, yeah, that's really a good point, that you really have to see for yourself what works for you and just adapt it accordingly. So yeah, that
Yeah, and
definitely.
I think another thing I forgot to mention is the circadian rhythm, right? So there is a lot of research also related to how your circadian rhythm kind of ties with your intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
So, like, if most of the like before the invention of the light bulb and the night lighting,
Mhm.
people used to finish their meals before the sunset, and that's how it was kind of done. And that timing would change in the winter versus in the summer, right?
Mhm.
Summer, you are going to probably eat for longer, so you don't, and your activity levels is higher too.
I too, yeah.
So what it means in summer, your intermittent fasting window is going to be very different for it in the winter. And
Okay.
that is something what people don't realize it, but that's very, very true. And that's why, like, seasonally you have to change, you have to kind of not let your body get used to one single thing, challenge it a bit,
Yeah.
stress it a bit, so that it can changes the way it metabolizes, but it should not be too stressful.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. So now the next question. Oh, well, how to choose the right type of fasting? I think that we've just discussed. Basically, it's not just going by certain, rule books, but mostly to see what really fits you, your routine. If you have any underlying conditions, and
Mhm.
just work around those things and really make something fit you rather than going for something that works for somebody else and just ends
Mhm.
up not working for you at all.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, so the next one is, how long does it take to see results? So I believe we partly discussed it because it really depends on what you're seeing affecting your body. But yeah, if let's say somebody was to do start intermittent fasting generally and we're doing it every day, how long do you think it takes people to see results?
Okay, so so I don't know. I mean, I didn't really look for scientific research on it, but what I believe is that when I do like lifestyle or dietary changes in somebody's during my coaching, what I know that typically it takes 3 to 4 weeks, mostly like around 3 weeks is kind of the time when your gut microbiome changes to the or adjust to the new way of living, new way of eating, right? So it's typically like 3 hours, three week is the time like you want to continue anything, any practice. And it also, I mean, if you think about healthy or habit building, there are like just 21-day kind of, rule of thumb that you want to practice something for 21 days for making it a lifestyle. So, and even like scientifically, even for our gut microbiome to evolve, change, you can start seeing results as early as 1 week, but 3 week is the time you want to give it so that, you're producing the hormones that the way it's supposed to produce. Some people may take 4 weeks, but I think 3 to 4 weeks is a good amount of time if you're doing it every day to see any difference.
Okay. So another question that we have is fasting in the morning versus night, that is skipping breakfast over having early dinner.
So I am actually biased in that one. I know some people find it easier to skip the breakfast when it comes to intermittent fasting. And of course, it depends on your lifestyle, right? Again, there is no hard and fast rule, but when the way I understand the science of it, and I kind of relate it to the housekeeping. Okay. So when we are sleeping at night, your body takes care of a lot of important processes for it. It basically helps the autophagy. You must have heard of it. It's basically help first like repair the DNA damage that has happened every single day. And it also takes out the bad cells. It kills them, and it restores balance and everything. Like, so that is something that's happening during the resting phase when you're in the deep sleep. It happens throughout the day, but at a slower phase. So if you think about a diner, right, that is open, and so if you're cleaning the diner when people are there, so yes, somebody has to keep cleaning the whole day slowly, but then when the diner gets closed, people are out, you have the dedicated cleaning hour. That's what's happening in our body at night when we are sleeping. So when you're doing the fasting, like if you're skipping your dinner, your body gets a lot of time, the cleaning time during that resting phase, right? If you have like 8 p.m. dinner and then you sleep at say 10 p.m. And so your body is going to spend more time in digesting than preparing and cleaning and basically the key to intermittent fasting is the autophagy, is basically the dead cells, how to remove them, because when we are in the abundance phase, you're always growing. But when you are actually have a little bit time, it's like, now let's get rid of the things that we don't want. And we won't just keep piling up. And so that's why I feel, if you skip the dinner, that is more beneficial for you versus skipping the breakfast. But having said that, I mean, skipping something is beneficial, like if your body can tolerate it, right? So that's the analogy, at least I would say.
Yeah. And is it necessarily, I mean, we say, let's say I have a window from 9 to 5 or 6, right? So let's say I have my breakfast and then I squeeze in my lunch around 12:31, and then I eat again around 4:35, but I stop like after 5 or 6. Is that like, still squeezing in 3 meals, but healthy? Let's say we're talking about healthy meals as well. Is that going to be beneficial as well? Like, so basically we're trying to squeeze all the meals in, but we're just trying not to eat after a certain time. So, the body gets a time to digest and then work on it.
Yeah, I think, certainly. I think you're right. It will be. So, I mean, for most of my everyday practice is something like eat early. I mean, I personally do not follow any time window because I don't feel like if I have a good meal at 5 or 6 o'clock, I don't feel hungry afterwards. And then mostly like, my sleep time routine is more of winding down, not engaging in very high activity stuff. So I wouldn't go and exercise after my dinner. So it depends. Like, but somebody who does exercise and that's the only time that they are getting, maybe for them, eating later at night may work. But then it's more to do with giving its dedicated time. The earlier you can get with the digestion part done, your body can now start cleaning and assimilating things.
Absolutely. So ideally, how long you should give your body before you actually go to bed to digest your food?
Yeah, I think they say around 4 hours.
Right.
So that's kind of put you at the window of like, 7 p.m. ish, like if you're like, you sleep at 11. But again, it depends on your metabolism too. So if you're very like fast, then maybe you can get away with 2 o'clock. Like kids don't really have to worry about all this, right? Because they can pretty much eat or digest whatever they
Yeah.
eat. So yeah, but then for adults, like as you grow old, the more time you can give, the better it is.
Mhm, mhm. So, like we discussed, it's dependent on each person, their health and everything. So for people for whom it doesn't seem to work, what could be their option or options? So let's say if it's not intermittent fasting isn't working for them.
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned earlier is to start it slow. Okay. If you think about, if you are looking again at the wind analogy, you don't want to, just because you need some stress for your roots to grow deeper, you don't want to start with a storm. And that the level of wind each plant can tolerate is very, very different then. And it's the same thing, like the level of stress in the food that you have one body can take is very different from the other. So you can start experimenting a little bit. If you know that you are eating a lot of food, at least in your opinion, like the way you can gauge is that if you all are sitting at a table and you are the one who is feeling more hungry and eating more food, like few things to understand is that one interesting thing is when you crave for more food, it actually means that you are nutritionally deficient, because your body wants to eat more and more food to make up for the lack of micronutrients this has. So it's just trying to get more food from more nutrients from the diet, the same diet. So if you're eating too much empty calories, you're going to tend to eat more. So that is the first thing you look at your diet, is that, what am I eating? And then when you're challenging it, like again, like when you're craving too much, like all the time, a lot of time you may have some other issues, just not food, because food we look for comfort, right? This is like one thing, like we are always having these happy memories associated with the food. So if something else is going on in your life, and then you probably will start craving sugar and basically fast food, because interestingly glucose plays a lot of role, like a very important role in the way your body responds to the stress. Like to bring down the stress, you need glucose in your blood. So that's where, like, when you're in the after a stressful day, you want to go for that sugar, because your body needs it, because you want the parasympathetic nervous system to activate. So all these things come into play, is that you want to stress a little bit, and then do it slow, like and there is no competition or judging about yourself. Like if you are not able to do it, that's okay. Like you don't have to be hard, that, oh, this is the only thing I need for getting better. Like um, actually, interestingly, recent I heard something about related to meditation. But when you're some people get very much affected by the environment, right? So when your frequency is higher than like, it's all about, everybody emits a frequency and the vibration, so you tend to absorb or exchange more based on, if you're just totally reliant on external factors. But when you're trying to internalize everything, like you are resonating at whatever frequency that you want to resonate in, it doesn't really matter what environment is it in. And you can actually take this to your food and eating habits as well. Like, so you understand what intermittent fasting means for you. um, you understand that little bit stress is good for you to even start working, and give your body that stress, and be happy about it. It may mean, like, if you were eating maybe say like maybe 5-6 meals a day, it may mean like eating just 3 meals for some people, or maybe 4 meals. Just so it's a progression, not perfection, that we are looking for, right?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to really analyzing your own lifestyle, like you said. So seeing what's on our plate, are we actually giving the body the nutrients that it needs? We could be eating a lot, but if we are probably compensating for the nutrients that it doesn't, it lacks, and feeding it with something which still doesn't have nutrients, it's empty calories, like you said. So it's not really going to help. So first of all, looking at that,
And number two, really realizing that, our body is unique. It is like every single person is different. And it's not a competition thinking, but well, it worked for that person. Why isn't it working for me? And getting frustrated about it, or trying super, super hard, like really being really hard on yourself and saying, no, I have to make it work. So, so I think it really comes down to those two things. And moderation, doing anything in moderation is like, at least to start with, is what really helps, I guess.
Yeah, and also I totally think it's also a belief system. We actually internally may not believe sometimes, like if you're having a hard time in losing weight.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a client who basically was everything perfectly, but she was just not losing weight because she really did not think that she could lose weight. And I kind of realized it very later in my kind of coaching that I'm like, okay, you're doing everything together. I'm seeing same things, like working with another client, like, and very similar things. Of course, you can't really say that, but the core thing is like what you believe in. Like you really have to believe in the things that you are doing, and not just get affected by anything else. Like if you believe you are going to lose it, you are going to lose the weight.
Yeah,
if you believe that is working for you, it will work for you.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had another person, she sent me a message saying that since she started her, menstruation, but, when she started her period, after that, she's been putting on weight. So she's like putting on a lot of weight, and she's tried a lot of things. She's got her tests done. There's nothing coming out. And she's just like, I think, vitamin D deficient. Other than that, like, she's not diabetic. She has no PCOS. But she just doesn't tend to understand why that's happening. What in your view could be different reasons that's affecting her weight?
So one of the things is like, this is my personal experience, is that the numbers don't always tell the truth. Okay, so we have not a really full understanding. I would say our human physiological understanding is maybe like 30-40%. Like I don't know enough biology to say how much, but so I had this hypothyroid, right? So but before that I had started having issues with my periods, I would say 5 or 6 years before, and I was every year going to my gynecologist and saying, okay, something is wrong, like uh, and then just test me, and then they would do everything, testing, all the testing, and everything would come out perfect. And then you realize that, okay, I have hypothyroidism. And what happened is, in my particular case, I was having this autoimmune health issue where my body is destroying the thyroid. So by the time the things come to your test, your body's thyroid is already destroyed. Okay, so it wouldn't come up because we are having many mechanisms which are compensating for each other, right? So if your thyroid is not working well, one of the things actually I learned from more of not a science book, but a medical medium I follow, Anthony William. So he was talking about your adrenal glands actually compensating for the lack of your thyroid hormone. So you don't really feel anything, and you see all the blood levels are fine. But so that's one thing that could be going on, because of course it's related to, she said, like after she started menstruating. So I feel it has to be hormonal. But if you think about the way the range, the labs are being the range has been calibrated is based on an average person. So they have a lower range and the higher range. That could mean different for your body. So just because everything is within the range, even like for example, vitamin D, right? So you mentioned the deficiency of it. In fact, most of us in current times are deficient in vitamin D, but the range says, like lab range is like 30 to say 100 is the normal range. But for a person to be, for a healthy person, like what your optimal numbers, it has to be around like 50 plus or 75%. So even when you are within the range at 30, you have vitamin D deficient. So, and some people need more of certain hormones versus less. So there's certainly a lot of going on. And for her, like for people like this, I think working with a functional nutrition practitioner or a doctor or a person who is looking at the full body, not just the hormonal health, can benefit her quite a bit.
So would you say like an obviously nutritional specialist and endocrinologist, maybe you can look at it different facets of it, or what would you say?
So see, my experience with endocrinologists has been very mixed, because so the way the doctors are trained, right? So everybody is trained on their system. Okay, this is like how your endocrine system is. Basically, you have this HPA axis, like your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal.
Yeah.
So, and there are plenty of, like, all the other body parts or hormones are kind of related to how your pituitary kind of sends signaling messages.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the endocrine system, like the doctors, the way they're talking a lot about these, but then how that affects with the brain, like, so you don't want to actually start there's a lot of like, what I'm saying is there's a lot of interdependency happening.
Yeah.
So for example, 70% of your, like, my issues was like a lot of them were gut related. So I was not going to go and see a digestive the GI specialist for it. Yeah. I was just talking to my endocrine system, and my doctor never ever mentioned anything related to food. When I asked him, like, what can I do to help with my thyroid, said nothing, like, you just have to take a pill. So I mean, I had to change 5 doctors. I have to say, I did find one of the doctors who did believe me that, oh, there are things are happening, and we can get, like, but not everything can be tested. Like sometimes it can also relate to like activation of some virus, a low level viral infection, which you can detect. So there are studies on having, especially, like, I study more thyroid health and autoimmunity. So one of the things that they talk about in autoimmune issues is the presence of EBV virus, which is Epstein-Barr virus. And you pretty much such a common virus that 80% of us have it, okay? Had it, like, were infected with it at one point of time. What happens is, for people who are suffering from these kind of unknown issues, they usually have activation of some low grade viral infection. And I know I had antibodies. My doctor, like this doctor that I went to, tested for me for it. And then clearly for me, like, this is such a low level that you can't really measure it. So for example, like, if you talk about heavy metal toxicity, if you have, say, dental work done, a lot of dental work done, these, especially if you have root canals, you basically are still leaching small toxins through that infected nerve, which has been kind of, and then it can lead to the chronic health issues. So there's lots going on which we cannot measure, and there is no way to measure it. You can't really go into every nook and cranny of your body and start measuring things. You probably can if you are dead, but I mean, the science is not there. So you do understand, like, your body is definitely telling you she's having issues. She's definitely going through something. And sometimes when you actually go for the full body system type of investigation, then you can figure out.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Thank you so much. And last question really. So if you were to compare intermittent fasting with keto diet, for example, we can't really compare it because they're 2 different things, but how would you differentiate the 2? And, is one more effective than the other?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of ketogenic diet, honestly, because you are basically coercing your body to change the way it uses its energy source. So yes, ketones. So we have for a probably good reason, we have 2 different ways of producing energy in our body. And it's maybe one of a redundant system, like you're using glucose, you use fat cells, you do also use protein for energy production too, and so on. So all these macronutrients are in a way related to energy production, but when you're relying solely on one source, and like ketone, ketogenic diet long-term has not been studied, and especially the liver gets so much involved in the production of, like, the liver is the primary organ where your ketones are, like, generated. And if your liver is overloaded, particularly it is in these times, because you have so much environmental toxins, so much of pretty much everywhere you're bombarded from things, your liver is totally overloaded. And when you're overloading in terms of a metabolism too, it can backfire. So short term, I would say ketogenic diet is okay. But I have seen people who take it to many extent, the enzyme levels in the blood can skyrocket, and that's not good for you. On the other hand, intermittent fasting is not that you are relying mainly on ketogenic diet, like ketones for your energy production. switching between glucose and ketones. So that has some benefits.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I have a friend. Yeah. Sorry. I have a friend who is combining now ketogenic with the intermittent fasting, and I couldn't tell her very bluntly that I wouldn't do that if I were you. I mean, I did tell you I wouldn't do it then if I were you, but she seems to have trained her body for that. So it seems to be working for her. I don't know about the long-term part yet too, but then I don't think she intends to do it for long term.
Yeah. And I think also, even if people are doing it, I think it's important that we just don't do it because somebody said it worked for them, or, you know, what they've read somewhere. It's more about really understanding and knowing and consulting maybe with someone, you know, like a nutritionist or like, you know, somebody who can guide them into doing it properly rather than just going after a trend and just doing it without understanding your body and having enough knowledge about the nutrients and stuff. So I think that's really what it kind of comes down to. Well, thank you so much, Rachna. It's been so interesting. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of follow-up questions. So I can't wait to have another session. But yeah, we've already talked about some topics that we're going to discuss at some point, you know, maybe in a few weeks' time. But yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much for your time today. And I really look forward to putting this out there. And, you know, whatever questions I get, then I will be getting back to you with them. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the day, and I will be in touch soon.
Sure. Thank you, Jax. And I enjoyed talking and answering the questions too. So,
Same.
yep.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.